Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast. We are presented to you by Vox DFS Firelines and VoxDFS.com. My name is Justin. You can follow me on Twitter at Skull King Justin.
And I am Ryan Skullrud. You can follow me at Skull King FB.
Yeah, and so before we get too far into this, we do want to we got to pay the bills, got to keep the lights on. Need to do a message from our sponsor as Ryan reads that off.
All right. So like we said, we were brought to you by Vox DFS Firelines, VoxDFS.com. They are a premium DFS lineup consultant service. Whether you play NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, NASCAR, PGA, doesn't matter the platform, doesn't matter the sport, FanDuel, Yahoo, DraftKings, they do it all. They provide quality cash and tournament lineups for all sports, all platforms for one low monthly membership. They have an online chat that you can actually get on and talk with their experts, get into a group chat with a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of other clients of theirs. They even do a little bit of individual consulting for no extra charge. You can go over your lineups with their experts. This is the ultimate, let's be honest, this is the ultimate DFS lineup service that they have for a price that's so much lower than most providers out there. As a special bonus for Skull King Premium members, if you sign up for the $10 Skull King Premium membership, Vox DFS owner Brad Holda, who used to be a writer for us, is a good friend of mine, absolutely love the guy. He was actually going to be creating an NFL cash lineup every week for the regular season, so week 1 through 17, to help introduce you to their services, as well as if you sign up for the premium membership with SkullKing.com, SkullKingFootball.com, they will also give you 72 hours for free of consulting with their service and with their experts on their online chat. We actually have already had 1 or 2 people sign up for that just in the last couple days. So this really is a phenomenal value. 72 hours free consulting. Doesn't matter the sport, since NFL full season hasn't actually gotten going yet. Like I said, they do MLB, they do soccer, they do PGA, and these guys are awesome. They treat you like family. They treat all their clients like family. I absolutely love every single one of them. They're great to talk to, great to work with. So really check them out at VoxDFS.com. You can follow them on Twitter also at DFS Firelines. So there you go.
Now that the bills have been paid, let's get on to the show. Today's episode, we're really going to be talking about the sleepers, guys you shouldn't pass on their draft stock, maybe down for other people, but we are high on them. We believe that these players are going to make an impact, and so we're going to be covering quarterbacks, a quarterback each, a running back each, a wide receiver each, and we kind of came to an agreement on tight end. And so, Ryan, I'm going to have you start off with the quarterback position. Who do you believe is going to be the biggest sleeper in your book when it comes to the quarterback position?
Well, in 12-team mock drafts, I've been targeting this guy because I can get him so late, and he tends to be in one of my leagues laughed at, whoever takes him as their quarterback. But I've got to go with Matthew Stafford from Detroit. The guy last year, over the second half of the season, absolutely tore it up once Jim Bob Cooter took over as the offensive coordinator.
Best coach name in the NFL, by the way. Best coach name.
Jim Bob Cooter.
Jim Bob.
He finished the regular season. He finished the second half of the season only throwing 2 interceptions. Basically, kind of the same kind of. He went on the same kind of run as Russell Wilson did for the Seahawks. He was very efficient, and one thing that really builds it up for me is the fact that their running game is so weak. I mean, I fell for the Amir Abdullah hype last year, which I'm willing to take Amir this year as a post hype type of sleeper. and take him just because I can get him so late now this year, especially in like a PPR draft. But because of the question marks that are in their running game, and their defense they have a pretty solid defense, but it can kind of go back and forth. I can see Matthew Stafford throwing for 600 passes again. If we look at it over the last let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, this is his passing. This is his total number of attempts. Last year, 592. 2014, he threw 602. 2013, 634. In 2012, he threw 727 passes.
Wow.
Then in 2011, he threw 663. So, yeah,
they've still lift his arm.
they've been coming down on that the last few years, but I still see him throwing around 600 passes on the season. And he's got a cannon. He does have, he doesn't have Megatron anymore, but even Matthew Stafford himself says, it's been taken out of context, but Stafford says, we may be a little bit better without Megatron. And I don't think that's saying, well, because Megatron wasn't good. No, Megatron was awesome, and he retired.
Yeah.
He still had I still think he had a few great seasons ahead of him. However, because they'll have more spread out, even weapons, bringing in Marvin Jones, having Golden Tate, having Theo Riddick out of the backfield. They've brought in, who's Anquan Bolden now to be kind of a slot receiver type of guy, sort of a possession guy. I think that they're spread out enough that they won't be able to focus on just one guy, and therefore maybe, may make his passing a little more efficient. He's been, well over 4,000 yards every year for the last 5 years. And his TD production, 32 last year. The year before in 2014 was down a little bit, 22, 29 in 2013, 20 in 2012. So he's kind of gone back and forth, but I can see this year at the value that you can get him at. I picked him up in from the 10th to the 13th rounds, and in a lot of 12-man drafts, he's actually going undrafted, or getting drafted as a second QB. So while everyone else is drafting their quarterbacks, I'm fine to drafting the quarterbacks. I'm fine to take value at other positions like running back and wide receiver. Wait on the quarterback and pick it up there. So yeah, so for me, quarterback is Matthew Stafford. Yeah.
My sleeper for this year seems to be, and I don't like this. It seems to be the hot hand, if you were, in a couple of mock drafts. He's been going as early as the 8th round, which I think is a little high. It's before I would take him, but for me, it's Tyrod Taylor. Last year, first year as a full starter, 20 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, had a QB rating of 99.4. He was efficient. He did not turn the ball over. The Buffalo Bills just offered him a contract. They believe in him. I think that's something of note. Not the details of the contract, but that they were willing to extend him for a number of years. Something that they believe he's doing well. One thing also to note is that he sat behind a starter for numbers of years, and I think not that he's going to be on par with like an Aaron Rodgers, but unless you're one of these Andrew Lucks who's going to come in and dominates from year one, I think it's better for a quarterback to sit behind a starter, learn, get up to speed on the game, because there's so much to the game that needs to be learned. And I think you will see continual progress in Tyrod Taylor. I'm looking for similar numbers. I think the interceptions are going to be a little bit higher, just because I think they're going to be throwing the ball a little bit more, and hopefully Watkins stays healthy all season. The other wild card, and I know that we talked about this off air, is I really don't like the coaching change at defensive coordinator. I love Rex. I love his style. He's my type of coach. He's kind of one of those, he just doesn't care what other people think. He's going to be in your face. He's going to be blunt honest. Even if he's wrong, he does have a Mark Sanchez tattoo, which is a little bit of a negative. But the hiring of his brother as the defensive coordinator, I get family. We're a family show. I love family. but his brother has been the defensive coordinator for the worst defense in the league for the last 3 seasons.
Even with all of the
Yeah,
improvements that they
improvements.
in air
Uh,
quotes improvements that they've tried to make on the defense.
I think he tinkers too much. He's like a fantasy football owner. He just tinkers too much with the defense. Just let the guys play. I think it was a good move for him to come and learn under his brother. But once again, back on Tyrod Taylor, I think they're going to be down in more games, and then they're going to have to throw, and they're going to have to rely on him, which is why I think the interceptions will go up a little bit more. But I do look at him to be kind of around that 3,000 yard mark, probably a little bit more. I think touchdowns, I'm looking at about 25, 26, which is an improvement from last year. But I really think Tyrod Taylor's poised for a good year, and I didn't even get to talk about his running ability, which is on par.
Yeah,
So,
which I was actually gonna throw that out was his running ability, the fact that he actually can run the ball.
yeah,
If you actually go onto our projections, I would say his ADP on Draft Pros or on Fantasy Pros is, I want to say he's like the 16th quarterback. So I mean, that's an amazing value. I want to say looks like here for the projections on our website, throwing for 21 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 500 rushing yards, 3 rushing TDs, and about 3,300 yards. So
yeah.
I think that's pretty solid. He could throw for more, especially the defense really struggles and he's forced to throw the ball up.
Yeah,
He does have a hang of an arm.
the running aspect cannot be ignored, especially around the goal line in his ability to buy time, roll out, and run in the end zone a lot like Russell Wilson. He doesn't necessarily have the escapability of the magician that is Russell Wilson.
Correct.
But the ability to roll out and threaten with his legs and be a legitimate threat with his legs adds value in the red zone.
Yeah.
So
He just needs to stay healthy. So
yeah. Moving on to wide receivers, I kind of want to go first to kind of piggyback off of your pick. I like Detroit. I like Detroit this year. You went with Matthew Stafford. I'm going as my sleeper this year is Marvin Jones. I just think there's too many opportunities on the board with Megatron leaving. I don't think Anquan Bolden takes too many. I know that there's some who got a little bit nervous when Anquan Bolden got signed. And so I don't think so. Some people thought that a lot of the third down targets are now going to go to Bolden. I'm not of that train of thought. But I do believe that Marvin Jones is poised for a much bigger year in a much more pass-oriented offense. Once again, one of the things you didn't mention is Matthew Stafford's average completion was like 6 yards. And so they're throwing the ball shorter. They're getting more passes in volume, and I think that allows Marvin Jones to get more volume and more value. Marvin Jones was going towards the tail end of the 8th round last time I had looked. I just think there's just too many options. The running game is kind of a mess, and I'm a believer in the Cooter, so that's just me.
One thing to kind of throw on there with Marvin Jones, he is a little bit more of a deep threat than say Anquan Bolden. So I mean, with them throwing shorter, that could open up things for Marvin Jones over the top. If anything, on those short throws to Anquan Bolden, because he's more that possession type of guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that could hurt Golden Tate more.
Yeah.
So I think Marvin Jones, again, he needs to stay healthy. He missed the entire 2014 season. Just couldn't play. He was still coming off of an injury, I want to say from the end of 2013. So if he stays healthy, he really could be set. Last year he had 65 receptions for over 800 yards and 4 TDs. So
Yeah.
he's a solid wide receiver, 4 right now. If you take that volume right there, like kind of a plug and play guy, but he has the opportunity because of Detroit's offense to really take off and be a possible. I'd put him. I'm not going to say he's going to be one of those elite guys. Wide receiver 1. He may have a couple of weeks like that, But a solid wide receiver 2, middle 2 to high 3 on a constant basis. Yeah, may have a game down here or there, but for the most part, could be a very solid wide receiver 2. So
Yeah.
all right, so for my wide receiver, I had to do a little bit of digging, simply because my wide receiver did not play in the NFL last year. So for mine, I actually went with Marvin Jones' old team, the Cincinnati Bengals, and I went with Tyler Boyd.
Ooh.
And and here's my reasoning. Everyone's picking as the top rookie wide receivers. Sterling Shepard, who had a phenomenal opening game.
Who I am high on.
So
To say the least.
But if I'm looking for a sleeper, Sterling Shepard's moving up the draft boards. I think I've seen him go as high as the 6th or 7th round in PPR leagues. So for me, going towards Tyler Boyd, who again is going to be that possession type guy. Right now, they're putting him in the slot. He's got AJ Green, who's going to be a target hog. And then you've got Brandon LaFell, whose last relevant season was 2 years ago, where he performed like almost a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 for like the last 6 weeks of the season. And then he came back last year and was dropping the ball like crazy, like he had, the previous years.
Yeah.
So he's, I don't see him being very relevant. And so because he's the number 2, I see Tyler Boyd getting a lot. Another thing to put into consideration is the fact that Tyler Eifert is injured, and we simply don't know how long it's going to take him to come back. They're already talking about him missing a couple games. That's enough time to really for Dalton to develop a really good rapport with Tyler Boyd in the slot, kind of as a possession guy. And he's not a little guy. He's 6'2", 200. So
Yeah.
he has a little bit of size to him. He's not Tyler Eifert, who I believe is like 6'6".
Yeah.
So it's not like he's going to be a bruiser, but I think with his size, he's got enough, and he's got enough talent, and the opportunity is there for him to be a minimum wide receiver 3, maybe even a wide receiver 2 some weeks. So I think, and he's in a lot of drafts, he's going undrafted. So in 12 team leagues. So I've been picking him up with my my last pick before I pick up defense and kickers. So.
And I think that has more to do with the fact that he didn't play last year, and there's not a lot of people talking about him right now currently that I know of.
I think more of it is because of the hype around Shepard and Coleman, because their opportunities are right out there in front of them. Shepard's stepping in as the number 2 wide receiver already in the New York offense, and Corey Coleman is stepping in as the number 1 in the Browns offense. So
but let's just remember, RG3 is throwing to Coleman. So let's just remember that. Table Coleman for just a little.
Well, and even Coleman's going like second to last pick, second to last round.
So I think that's the RG3 factor right there.
Sure.
I am rooting for RG3.
It's the Browns factor.
So. It was the Browns, taking the Browns to the Super Bowl.
All right.
One every year. And so moving on to the running back position, I'll let you give your running back first. Who do you got as your sleeper in terms of running backs this year?
My sleeper running back is Bilal Powell. Again, I'm a huge PPR type guy. I think all but one of my leagues last year was at least a half point PPR, if not a full point PPR. I like the flexibility that PPR gives you with secondary running backs, and being able to find the value later with running backs. And also, let's be honest, it gives you higher scoring games, which people like higher scoring. That's kind of why the NFL has gone so crazy with the pass interference rules for DBs, is because it creates higher scoring games.
Yeah,
more points means more people in the stands, more people watching on TV, which means more money for the NFL. So, honestly, I really like Bilal Powell. He's sitting behind Matt Forte, and I've actually already gotten into a bit of a Twitter fight with someone, with a host of another show, who thinks that Matt Forte is absolutely going to rip it up, and Well, I'm not going to totally write. I'm not totally gonna, I saw that shaking head. I'm not totally going to write off Matt Forte. If you look at his stats from last year, let me pull those up real quick. If you look at Matt Forte's stats just from last year, he let's see. All right, so he had 3 weeks that he actually missed. I want to say it was weeks. Looks like it was weeks 9 through 11. And after that, he was kind of split in time. He still had a couple weeks where he had 15, 21, and 17. In the last 6 weeks, 15, 21, and 17 rushing attempts. But he was still kind of splitting time with Jeremy Langford, just because they weren't sure how well his leg was holding up, because I want to say it was a hamstring injury.
And Langford did pretty well in his absence.
Well, Langford did okay. Langford's one of
for a backup. He did okay.
That's another one I've gotten into. Someone is Langford
too high on.
Langford is not as great as the stats may have said he was. So, but with Matt Forte, I'm not so sure that over 30 years old and moving to another team, that it's very hard for guys to make that kind of a transition. So for me, I like Bilal Powell. He was huge in the pass game last year. He played 11 games. He was hurt a few games. But if you look at the last few weeks, let's see, he missed week 17, but in weeks 11 through 16, he had 5 receptions, 2, then 8, 5, 7, 5. You get back those kind of receptions out of your running back in a PPR league. You're running back 2. That is awesome. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you want. And for 67 yards, 91 yards, 46 yards, 54 yards, had a couple of touchdowns in there. And was getting attempts at running the ball as well. So I think I don't see Matt Forte finishing in the top 20 running backs this year. That's one of my hot takes.
bold alert
for the year, but I'm cautious because of the soft tissue injuries that he was suffering last year. He's 30 years old and moving to a different team. I'm willing to be wrong on Matt Forte.
Yeah, I personally think he went to the Jets for his final payday. That's my personal opinion, because he knew way down.
Yeah, and Chicago wasn't going to pay him. So I think he's been a great running back, and he very well could have a very good season. I'm personally willing to let someone else take that risk. I'm willing to be wrong and go with someone else. And so for that reason, I love the draft value that Bilal Powell is going. In a lot of my 12-man mock drafts, even in PPR, he's 12th, 13th round. Sometimes in the 15th. So
I like Powell as well. He's not my choice for running back sleeper, but my backup for the quarterback sleeper was Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think best 1-2 combination in terms of receivers, just because Decker's a monster as a number 2.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be a little bit more pass happy. With Forte taking a step back in the running game, they're going to be involving, I believe, Powell a little bit more in the pass game, and so that's why I like that pick.
A lot of it depends on how their defense plays, which was pretty good last year. But, we'll see how it goes this next year.
Yeah. My pick for running back sleeper is Darren Sproles. Another podcast that I listened to politely referred to Ryan Matthews as an individual whose bones are made of glass. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. Last year, Darren Sproles' numbers, just as a quick, he had 83 rushing attempts, 317 yards for a 3.8 average. He had 3 touchdowns on 55 receptions. I believe he was number 3 last year for running back receptions behind Devonta Freeman and Danny Woodhead, who I really like, Danny Woodhead in PPR. But I think I just don't trust anything.
Oh, and don't forget Theoretic and and what had both
Yeah.
receptions last year. So
Yeah, I just don't trust the Eagles' offense at all right now with Bradford and the drama that was off season with him wanting out. I think there's a lot of drama behind the scenes that has been able to escape a lot of the press so far. That's just speculation. But I don't like any of the receivers on that team whatsoever. I don't care if they just picked up Darrell Green Beckham today. I don't care. Big body reminds me of Williams, who came out of USC, kind of gained weight, then came to Pete Carroll's office, the Seahawks, since we're out of Seattle. Had a little bit of a splash, but just the NFL was just a different game.
Yep.
Just because you're a monster in college does not mean you're going to be a monster in the NFL. I just don't see anything really producing from the Eagles' offense this year. I think they're going to move to the rookie quarterback early this year, and there's going to be a lot of checkdowns. So I think that's where Darren Sproles is going to pick up a whole lot more catches in a PPR league. He's going to be more involved, I think, than Ryan Matthews. And so that's kind of my –
and Matthews should be out by week 5.
Yeah, Matthews will be out by week 5. Or he'll play like every other week because he'll have some sort of damage. Probably soft tissue this year as opposed to bones over the last couple of years.
I'm pretty sure it'll be his collarbones again.
Collarbone again? The guy's got to, invest in
titanium or something.
Titanium or whatever X-Men, whatever that stuff is.
Adamantium.
Yes, he's got to invest in that. Sorry. Shame on me for not catching my comic book references. On to tight end. We both have the same person. I wanted to go with somebody else, but I decided not to go against Travis Kelce. I still have this stigma in my head that because their running game is so good and their quarterback is still Alex Smith, that there's not going to be a lot of volume in the passing game as long as
Travis
running backs stay healthy.
Travis Kelce's still being, a lot of people are still predicting him to be top, a top 3, top 4 if the opportunity's there. So
if the opportunity's there, I don't see the opportunity there. That may be my bias. That's why I'm not picking him, because I want this to be a little bit more about
big value,
and not just my prejudices or my personal takes. We'll throw those in often enough. Yeah. But when it comes to sleepers, I don't want to ruin your league by saying Travis Kelce's going to take a huge tank, because that's just my feeling, and it's not necessarily substantiated by anything. But both of us picked Antonio Gates. I really like Antonio Gates. I still get flashbacks of the game that he played against the Seahawks 2 years ago, where literally he could not be touched. Well, check that. He was covered by 3 guys, and he still caught the ball in the end zone. He scored 3 touchdowns. I think that year he had 5 total or something like that. It was ridiculous. But they're looking at getting him the record and beating Tony Gonzalez's touchdown record. He's got to get 8 this year, I believe, in order to either break or beat the record. And
I want to say it's 8 to tie it.
I think it's 8 to tie, 9 to break it. But with Phillip Rivers already having an infirmary ward for a wide receiver core and him having the huge body that he is, I know he's old in football standards. So he's old. But still, I still believe in Antonio Gates because of what I've seen firsthand. Yes, he was banged up a little bit last year, but I still believe.
He missed the first 4 games because he was suspended for substance. I think he was for ACH or something.
Yeah, ACH.
So he missed the first 4 games. So he only missed 4 games. He only missed one more game the rest of the season, and he still had 56 receptions for 600. So in 11 games, 56 receptions for 630 yards and 5 TDs. So I think because of, especially now with Stevie Johnson going down and out for the season, who is their slot receiver, Antonio Gates, where do they like to line him up a lot? In the slot. So that's going to give even more opportunity for Gates. And let's be honest, he is going in the I want to say if
I picked him up in the 12th round in a PPR draft.
did you? Yeah.
I'm
See,
not-
I picked him up. I want to say I picked him up in like the 12th or 13th round. But if you get onto our website and get the premium subscription to check out our projections, he is actually ranked as I want to say the 8th as number 8, right behind Travis Kelce. There, I mean, we're projecting. I want to say our website's projecting for 724 yards, 62 receptions, 6 TDs.
Give them the context. Just really quickly list 1 through 8 for tight ends.
All right, so number 1 is Gronk. Number 2 is Jordan Reed. 3, Greg Olson. 4, Delaney Walker. This next one kind of boggles my mind a little bit. Again, these are projections and our rankings are based off of other websites in which everything is kind of brought together in a consensus and then rated and then further
rated on how accurate.
Yeah, on how accurate they've been the last few years. And so honestly, in our number 5 running back list, or our number 5 tight end listed in our projections, is actually Martellus Bennett, because of how well they use the 2 tight end with Gronk and was Aaron Hernandez. So yeah,
Aaron Hernandez.
And then
many jokes.
Number 6 is Kobe Fleener. Number 7, Travis Kelce, and number 8 is Antonio Gates. So I mean, if you take out Martellus Bennett, because I'm not sure that, personally, I don't put much stock in the projections that they put there. Because again, this is based on other sites that we use kind of as a launching pad for our discussion. But I very much can see that Antonio Gates is going to be a great value at where he's being taken. So.
Yeah, and I would much rather have the tight end 1 on a team that's going to be behind a lot and need to throw, rather than tight end 2 on a team that will make the playoffs and will have a good offense. Yes, he'll get probably a little bit more catches, but I think the value's there still for Antonio Gates.
Yep.
What's going to be interesting is first red zone, they're going to triple cover Gates because no one wants to be that team that gives up the record.
Leaving Melvin Gordon to run it up the middle.
Yes. But one thing also, Ladarius Green played very, very well last year, I believe, considering his role. And he took a lot of targets away from Gates. And with Green now with the Steelers, there isn't that other tight end that's going to take up those targets. And so that's our tight ends. Anything else you have left to add there, Ryan?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. Again, these are kind of our opinions, what we've seen and what we think. So, take it for what it is. We try not to just copy what other people are saying. This is kind of us looking into the stats and how we feel and how we've seen these guys play over the last couple of years. So.
Yeah, and so one of the things we want to remind you is if you have listened to the first episode, we do have a competition going. If you haven't listened to that, please get just a view on that, just to get our background, kind of show you who we are, what we're about. But also we have a competition going for those who like us on Facebook, for those of you who like, subscribe, or comment through YouTube.
Well, on YouTube,
through our podcasts.
On YouTube, if you just like it or subscribe, take a screenshot so we can actually see it, because we can't actually see the names of the people who do that.
Yes.
However, if you leave a comment, obviously there you have to leave your name. So
if you leave a comment, that's easier. You can do all 3.
Yeah.
Comment's probably the easiest way for us to track that. But also, if you send us some sort of Twitter or you retweet our show posting that gets put on Twitter, that also enters you in. There's 4 winners of a free premium membership for year long, and then there's 1 grand prize winner, which gets you the 72 hours of consultation, as well as free year consultation from Skull King Football. Once again, that's 72 hours coming from Box DFS Fantasy Lines. And then our next show is going to be covering the other half of kind of the sleepers or busts. We're going to be talking about our top busts for the 2016 year, and who we think is really on a downward trend and who is really just going to kind of bust out. That's our show. Once again, we thank you for joining us. We look to see you at the next show. Have a good week.
All right. See you guys later.